It's Spoilerin time. This show is built on the back of Cordkillers. Cordkillers is the show where we figure out how to watch all this stuff. Then we get to watch it and talk about it here. This week, we're going to spoil The Stand, Season 1, Episode 8, Hannibal, Season 1, Episode 11, and WandaVision, Season 1, Episode 5. I'm Tom Merritt. He's Brian Brushwood.
Yeah, man. Look, if Cordkillers is the big multinational conglomerate, we're the guys that are using the copy machine without anybody paying for it. We're just going to make all these flyers for the PTA meetings or whatever.
Get my zine at Europa Books.
See? I print my promo for my magic show. I'm not talking about anything specific, Michael Dell. Joining us, of course, we have the internet's own Hollywood's Meryl Barr. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, man.
I am going to try and not spoil the shield and just spoil the things that we're here to actually spoil.
Okay, we're good.
Very good. Very good.
Vic is an alien. That's awesome.
Let's talk WandaVision, Season 1, Episode 5, on a very special episode. Got the Family Ties homage in the opening credits. Got some Full House. There's some Full House homages here and there. But we are now melding the two styles. Last week, we saw a style where we saw things from outside of Westview. And previous to that, mostly everything was happening within Westview. Now we were getting a little bit of a back and forth.
So this one, let's start with the big punch and how, as somebody who fell off of the X-Men Fox side of things, outside of Logan, best superhero movie of all time, full stop, come at me. The end twist of she recast her brother, just knowing that whatever this is, put in quotes, this, has her creating the life to fill the void of her dead brother in there was enough for me to gasp at the end of this. It took 24 hours before I was or actually, I guess 16 hours before I was chatting with Justin Robert Young, and he put into context, no, that's the actor from the Fox arm of all the mutant side of things. This is the real news, is that this is the collapsing and the fusing of the two different worlds.
If I remember right, that is Quicksilver, but they couldn't call him Pietro. And in Avengers, he was Pietro, but they couldn't call him Quicksilver.
Correct.
Yes, correct. And they couldn't admit that he was
movies.
a mutant in the Avengers.
Right.
They just had to say these are two special kids for whatever reason. So in a weird way, I feel even more qualified to express what an amazing episode this was, because I didn't have any cause to view it as a press release outside of the heavy wink about a certain astrophysicist who, lock it in, Janiel. I hope it's Reed Richards. That would be amazing.
Shoot.
Oh, did you not pick up on that?
No, I knew. Well, I was wondering who they could be referencing. I wasn't sure.
Come on, man. Come on.
Oh, damn it.
Right.
Oh,
now there are a lot of astrophysicists in the Marvel universe. I mean, my fun idea would be, it would be great if it was like,
how many would be worth them going,
right.
I know an astrophysicist.
Right, I thought it would be Bruce, and that's how you set up She-Hulk, or that, like, somehow, like,
maybe.
I don't know.
And that would be the shorter distance between 2 points, but not the one I want to hear.
I know, but it's
they
like,
wouldn't. I just don't feel like they would spend that much time going, I know an astrophysicist, when it doesn't lead anywhere. Like, just to call Bruce, I'm like, man, we've already seen Bruce. It's got to be Reed. It's got to be. That's the only reason you throw that in there.
Yeah, also because they also are referencing the energy that they're getting a signal from. They mentioned in the last week's episode, or 2 weeks ago now, is the same energy that turns the Fantastic Four into the Fantastic Four. So that's the other big like nod there. So yeah, all sorts of big deals. But like the Evan Peters thing, like I woke up I don't watch these at midnight like I was with The Mandalorian. And it's like I woke up Friday morning and all of Twitter was watch it now. And I was like, okay. And I was like, I'm not. And sometimes I spoil myself because usually I don't care that much. But this time I was like, okay, I'm going to watch Cold. And then the second he showed up, I gasped. And I haven't gasped like that in a few years. Like that was such and also such a bold move to do it here and not in a movie, to do it in this Disney Plus show. On top of that, what I will also say is that this show more and more feels like it was completely accidental, but this is the perfect return to the MCU as we go further along. Like after 18 months of having nothing since Spider-Man Homecoming, since Far From Home, this show has really done a great job at reorienting us with that whole universe and setting up how the world looks post Thanos. Like, it's great.
Yeah, this has got momentum at this point, and all of the doubts about like, well, how long can they make this joke last? Gone. Right? It's like, oh no, now it's all going to, it feels to me like it's all going to continue to make sense. Wanda says, I don't even remember how this all began, which implies to me there's more to it than just Wanda's in control. Wanda's obviously in control because she walks outside of the place and gets all the guns to, point at the director of S.W.O.R.D. She is apparently in charge of something to that point. But I think that sentence that she says to Vision is real. We also now know that she stole Vision's actual body and must be reanimating it somehow. We got a glimpse of that 2 episodes ago. Now we know that's probably what's really the underlying reality here. Still don't know about Agnes, except that we have that one moment where she goes, do you want me to take this again? The first of the cast members to show awareness in front of Wanda that she knows this isn't real, and that throws Vision off. We see Vision getting to look beyond the veil by short circuiting the guy at the computer store, right, or the computer shop, and then finding out that he's in pain, and so he's now questioning Wanda, and in fact they're about to come to blows when the doorbell rings and we see Pietro, and it kind of distracts everything for the moment.
That was the real magic trick of this episode, was that they credibly convinced us that, hey, Wanda might not be the good guy. And they had like low budget Patrick Warburton explain this whole layout of like, no, it's not cool to enslave 3,000 people and puppeteer them against their will. And in case you weren't sure about that, let's flash to Vision getting a brief scream of psychic pain from somebody who's in this position, who's essentially being, not to trivialize the rape word, but it's just like when somebody takes control of your body and makes you play out a fantasy season after season after season, that's not a good guy thing to do. And we understand it's complicated, and we understand that you're having a hard time dealing with stuff. However, kind of acting like the bad guy here, and it kind of makes us want to root for the team of, civilized folks who are going to not bust down your door.
Well, the thing I think is worth noting is in Endgame, all the Avengers had a trauma arc. They experienced this trauma. They couldn't fix it. The movie jumps 5 years, and we're watching them have PTSD over that fight. And they all changed in different ways. Cap cursed. Black Widow stopped taking care of herself. Like her you watch her hair is frizzled. Thor gained a ton of weight. Wanda, Wanda killed Vision, watched him, and then had to kill him to destroy the gem. Watches Thanos turn back time, and then watched Thanos kill him a second time. So she's watched the love of her life die twice. And from her perspective, that all happened like a month ago, because she was snapped out. So she was brought back 5 years later, and now she's only just now dealing with that grief. So this is her trauma arc that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah, and she may not be the cause of it. I think that's what's really interesting of that debate of like, hey, Wanda's bad. Well, no, she's not bad. We know her. It's like, well, she's doing something bad. There's no arguing that, but is she just doing it out of grief and has lost control, or is she being manipulated? Obviously, there's a connection to the multiverse of madness here, and we saw that directly with Quicksilver showing up from another universe, essentially another Pietro. But and as she says, they recast Pietro, but that brings the question: is that another Vision? Is that the Vision that died in our universe? Is everything else from our universe? What else is playing into this, and who's behind it? My best bet is that it's somehow related to Agnes, but I don't think Agnes is it. I think there's something else behind that.
If I was going to guess, purely speculating as a fan and as somebody who has not pursued any spoilers of any type, being a synthetic humanoid, Vision, they clearly indicate that the Infinity Stone embedded in his head was sort of the power source for things, and being ripped out because he's not human, it seems like a sufficient other power source would have the real Vision come back to life. And I could understand, I could imagine a version of this where it's like, okay, well, she's definitely for reals pregnant with those 2 kids. She definitely realizes that she can block off the world with the hex, which I did. I thought that was fine wordplay.
Clever.
Really enjoyed that with the hex, and dedicate some portion of her power, which I believe is also from an Infinity Stone or whatever. So it's the right magic go juice to animate him. So to bring him to a level of consciousness that is sufficient for him to go about daily business, but not so much that he could just go around the world just within, the town of Westview.
I think somebody gave her the hex. I think somebody gave her something that powers it, and that amplified her abilities.
That's my theory, is that there is a second villain here that is building up a battery of magical beings and power, right? Because we know that Wanda has a certain amount of control, but she doesn't have control over her kids, who are characters in the Marvel universe and have superpowers. She only has so much control over Vision, as we see at the end of the episode, and then her brother shows up, who you would assume, being her twin, is also equally powerful. Now you have,
and she says, "I didn't do that."
Yeah,
right.
You now have a lot of
that wasn't her.
So you have a lot of powerful people in one place. Maybe they're waiting for a 6th. Hold on, Wanda, Vision, the brother, the 2 kids. Maybe they're waiting for a 6th to finish up the hex, to do like a ritual summoning thing. But I think that there's another villain pulling the strings behind all of them.
Yeah, they might be using Wanda to open a portal to pull people in, to like a proof of concept.
So there is chatter with Mephisto as a comic book speculation at this point. Basically, imagine a character who's the devil, but not really the devil, but just looks and acts and has the power of the devils.
And he's a shapeshifter,
but is not the actual devil. I really hope it's not. I hope it's something a little more clever, like the manipulations of, like, I would rather this end with a revelation of Victor Von Doom or something, sir, your machinations have worked out. It's you're awesome, Doom. And it's like, then give me a Doom movie or something.
Yeah, I can't speak to any of that. The one call shot I'm going to make is for how they have, Evan Peters Quicksilver there. My guess is they pulled a Flash. He ran too fast, jumped universes because he ran too fast. He opened a portal because that's science, and this, the MCU has always been slightly science grounded. And then he got stuck there, and then whoever is like bringing in these people was like, "Oh, he's Quicksilver. Let's get him," and they just had the wrong one, like something like that. Like I think.
Well, they kind of already hinted at multiverses with the many worlds theory version of Endgame, where it's like, go back in the past, don't worry about consequences. It's not our past, and they'll deal with it. We're just gonna literally steal other universes' important bits and change their stories.
And in my kind of 2 entities conspiracy theory, right? If whoever this villain is doesn't know about this universe, right? But they hear Wanda say, as she tells the kids, "Well, I had a brother and he's gone." Well, that would explain why Pietro says your long lost brother is back and not your dead brother is here, because this entity would not know that there's kind of a contradiction between that information.
So the idea is that the kids have their own superpowers that allow.
No, not the kids. I'm just saying that whoever is pulling the strings heard that on the show because she says it to them while they're doing the show. And she took that white lie, or whoever this is, took that white lie and
that
misinterpreted
obfuscation. They did a similar thing in the Fantastic Four comic books. Reed Richards and Susan Storm have a son named Franklin, and there was this awesome episode where like this epic, powerful, godlike figure shows up and starts weighing lace, and he just keeps screaming, "Who am I?" And then they figure out like, "Oh wait, you're my son as an adult." And he's like, "Oh, that's right." And then he collapses and goes back to his timeline. I could see them playing in those kind of waters where maybe the kids know, like, we just know what mom told us, and maybe they summoned a version of him from another world.
Yeah, a couple things there. Obviously, this ties into Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, so multiverse plays into it for sure. It also makes me wonder if the J.K. Simmons, J. Jonah Jameson we saw at the end of Spider-Man Far From Home is actually the one from the Tobey Maguire movies. Not just just a casting of J.K. Simmons in the same role.
I think that's
somehow
longer than we need to go, because surely he would notice that suddenly he's in a different world, right? Yeah. Or maybe that's part of his Alex Jonesian ranting.
I don't know.
Everything used to be different.
That felt more like a nod to. That felt more like that in Spider-Man felt more like
just
a nod
throwing it
to
out there. It didn't,
everybody.
It's a throwaway comment. Yeah. But I think more important is Agnes tries to make the parallel with the dead dog, which it kind of looked like she killed. That sometimes you have to let go, which felt very much like Agnes trying to get Wanda to let go of Vision, right? It felt very much like, because she got Wanda to say all the things that somebody should say to Wanda about what she's doing with Vision. So it felt to me like Agnes is trying to get Wanda out of this. And then suddenly someone makes Quicksilver show up, makes me think that there's somebody else that doesn't want to get her over the deaths in her past. And is trying to keep her mollified for some reason. So there may be some internal struggle there.
That's interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if both Agnes and her brother are both manifestations of warring sides of her subconscious, given her power and her total control of everything. But knowing that this is a Marvel thing, and hey man, we gotta introduce some multi-billion-dollar thing.
I'm glad we got Darcy Lewis again. That's all. That's the only other thing I have to say. Any other thoughts on WandaVision?
No, I think that's it.
All right. On a very special episode, WandaVision, episode 5, season 1. Let's talk about Hannibal, season 1, episode 11, Roti. Dr. Abel Gideon escapes from custody and begins targeting the psychiatrist who attempted to treat him. This is the guy they tried to convince was the Chesapeake Ripper. And we play a little cat and mouse game of whether he really thinks he's the Chesapeake Ripper, whether he's going to kill the psychiatrist who did what did they keep calling it?
Like a psychic pressing or something like that. Psychic
priming,
or
but it's a cat and mouse game between Dr. Gideon and Dr. Lecter, basically, with Graham caught in the middle.
So I'm not in the business of saying that Hannibal has done anything wrong or can do anything wrong. I will
the show
say,
or the character?
What are you, a cop? I will say, this one withdrew some credit from the bank, and it's like this is I end this episode a little bit more tense, a little bit more of a plastic smile on my face, and a little bit of a side eye as I say, all right, okay, all right, where are we going?
You know what I love in my Hannibal is an episode with barely any Hannibal in it.
But they're setting up. This is a serialized story. This is clearly a part 1 of a part 2 because they let the guy go, right? Eddie Izzard is still on the run at the end of the episode. You know, this is part 1.
Yeah. Okay, look, I'll just say it.
Uh-oh.
A lot of silly stuff. A lot of really silly stuff in this episode. This is a very silly episode. This might be the silliest episode of Hannibal we've seen yet. It's very silly. And if you think you're watching a superhero, supervillain show, then yes, 100%. If you think you're watching a crime procedural, it's very silly. If you want to believe in the world, it's just a little bit tougher than most episodes. Tom, what say you?
I don't know, because I am less and less interested in talking about whether I liked it or not, whether it's silly or not, and so I don't think about that. I just think about the story more and more. Maybe that's my aging faculties. I don't know, but I found this episode to be intriguing in that it's Lecter's biggest test yet. Gideon is the closest thing to a challenge that Hannibal has seen. And I felt like, I wish I remembered better, I felt like we saw some moments where Hannibal didn't quite execute as well as he has in the past. At the same time, he is fully bringing Will under his control. And he very obviously thinks that Will is his new protege, and Will be his new friend. And while that's killing Will because he has undiagnosed encephalitis at this point, it's playing into Hannibal's game for the moment. So I was really, and maybe it just means I like the episode better than you did, but I was really more sucked into trying to figure all that stuff out.
I was more.
I didn't get too much distracted by the Colombian neckties or anything.
Right. I was definitely distracted by like, okay, we're going to wedge in like, here's a gruesome set piece that we can show. And then also remember that redheaded tabloid lady? Let's bring her back and make her, involved in this evisceration of the psychic nudger for no
psychic nudge. Was that it?
I don't know. Whatever it was just whatever it was 10% more than I had ordered, and I would like to send it back for another version.
You wanted less.
I didn't order the lengua. Could you please send that
just
back?
Everything was just a bit much for me.
Yeah, like the part where they cut Eddie Izzard cuts open what's his name's stomach and
and just hands her like piles full of guts and like keep them alive anyway. Puff of smoke, vanish. Villains, we all have this ability.
I mean, there's
surgeon,
psychopathic serial killers.
I mean, yeah, I kind of loved that.
I mean, yeah.
I loved that. I wasn't sitting there thinking, could this really be done? No. I was like, oh, that's clever. Like he's a really excellent surgeon, apparently, allegedly, and this just shows that he's able to do something crazy like that.
So to me, when Hannibal is at its best, it's when it makes me ask, why would they do that? And then it gives me a satisfying answer. Mm-hmm. And in this case, the first why would they do that was the Colombian necktie thing. And by the end of it, they're like, it's a thing drug dealers do to each other. And I was like, that's not a very satisfying answer. That sounds to me like a writer who wanted to set piece.
That to me wasn't the answer. The answer was Gideon wants to impress the Chesapeake Ripper and wants to get him on his side. And the question we haven't answered is Hannibal in fact the Chesapeake Ripper, or is he just pretending to be because he's good enough to see the signs?
Right. And then also there is the explanation of when they come in and say, all these psychiatrists applied their craft upon Gideon, and this is Gideon applying the best of his craft upon these psychiatrists.
Sure. But a copycat of a well-known, in high school, I found out what a Colombian necktie was, and to like that part. Neither here nor there. What about Freddie? What's her name?
Freddie Lowndes.
Why is she there?
But to tell the world
again,
that Eddie Izzard is
to send the message,
Chesapeake
right?
Ripper,
this is all about, I need to get the Chesapeake Ripper's attention, so I'm going to do things that will get his attention, and I'll have Freddie send the message.
And it worked, right? I mean, we see Hannibal on his old Gen 1 iPad reading the article, and I mean, I think you asked earlier, Tom.
Certainly gets Hannibal's attention.
Well, I guess if we're coming from the place that that Hannibal is the Chesapeake Ripper. I mean, we see what looks to be a message from somebody, maybe Hannibal, who copycatted it back and without the arm to kind of send a message and, sold Eddie Izzard out, basically. So at least I think we have an understanding of where Hannibal is at. Or
Hannibal's definitely doing all that. Whether he's doing it to somehow manipulate Will, whether he's doing it because he's just offended by Dr. Gideon, whether he's doing it because he is in fact the Chesapeake Ripper. Could be any or a combination of all three.
Okay. Well, suffice to say, all of it was a bit more ambiguous than I've enjoyed from previous episodes. They focused more on the parts that I like least, but I would love to hear what you three think.
That's what I got.
Yeah, the episode. Look, I will not sit here and say this is the best episode of season 1. It's far from it. It's also a very stripped down episode. And the cat and mouse isn't very exciting. But it definitely this is episode 11. There's 2 episodes left in the season. This is a very good episode of moving chess pieces into place for the back 2. And I think that because you had the whole bit where, Gideon shows up at Will takes Gideon to Hannibal's house, and then Hannibal tricks Will into thinking no one's actually there, and then it allows them to have a quick conversation, and then Gideon leaves, and then Will shoots Gideon outside what's her name's house. This is it's a lot of moving chess pieces into place in the right way.
Yeah, I thought the Will stuff ended up kind of keeping this episode afloat, where we kind of continued a little bit of seeing his I don't know, descent, basically. I thought that I thought especially the scene where he shows up at Hannibal's office with Gideon, and is he there? Is he real or not? And I thought that there was that was at least a good bit
I forgot all about
tension.
that little set piece where he's like, there's nobody there. What are you talking about?
That part was probably the strongest for me as well, because there was that double meaning of like, what's his name? Fake Chesapeake Ripper is like, oh wait, are you
Dr. Gideon?
Are you doing a thing? And then realizing,
And it sounded like maybe this was not this episode, but it maybe this was last week. But it did sound like Jack and one of the other people had an inkling that what was it that he was not diagnosed with, but they saw that he had the brain swelling or the brain
encephalitis,
and the encephalitis, that Jack and them know that he's got encephalitis now, and I don't know, either that's or they just know that he's in intensive care for some reason. But I feel like that lie of Hannibal and the doctor not giving Will the correct diagnosis is going to come to pass probably this next episode, if I read that scene right.
No, I didn't catch that. I'll have to think about that one.
I mean, certainly
that would be a big move.
It is no matter where that slider is set, definitely in the tripolar situation, you have Hannibal making a project out of Will, and you have Jack making a project out of Will, which means with the squeeze put on him, he's going to get increasingly unpredictable, right?
Yeah.
Certainly.
And Hannibal wants Will to kill Gideon because that means that he'll be more like Hannibal and they'll be able to understand each other, because Will kills people.
Yeah.
That's what you do with friends. You make them do things that are exactly the same as yours so that you can talk about them.
Yes. By the way, join me on Night Attack next week.
All right. Any other thoughts on roti?
Roti is French for roast. I guess the verb, not necessarily the noun.
Who got roasted?
Will, right? His brain's overheating.
Yeah, definitely. Right. Literally being roasted by the fever. All right. That is Hannibal, season 1, episode 11. And that is it. Because Meryl has not watched The Stand, and gosh, are we jealous? Meryl, we're going to say goodbye. But before we do, let folks know where they can find more of what you got going on.
As usual, twitter.com/MerylBarr, MERRILBARR is where you can keep up with all my goings on. Thanks for having me, folks.
Thanks, man.
I'll see you next time.
See you, Meryl.
Good chatting with you. All right, let's talk about The Stand, season 1, episode 8, the finale, ? Because we have this coda, Franny's in the well, coming this next week. But this is the so-called end of the story.
That is, it sucked.
To which I texted Brian and Bryce when I'd finished it. That was a way to adapt to the ending of The Stand.
I will fear no schlock.
This is... I mean,
I will fear no terrible reinterpretations. It takes nothing away from the original.
It does not. Absolutely.
Even as a soap, even through the lens of a melodramatic soap opera, big, dumb moves. What the hell is going on?
Okay.
With this show? What? God saved the day? Cool. All of the last 2 episodes have just been for nothing. What the?
I was with this show until this episode. Yes, we're all going to shout at once. I know, but yeah, I think all of us in varying degrees were willing to hang in there with this episode. And in the early parts, I was like, it's not the strongest, but I'm having a good time. These are great performances, interesting direction. Even if it's not exactly what I think would make sense, it makes enough sense until this episode. I mean, and I want to focus us immediately on the thing that ends the Dark Man, the nuclear bomb from Trash Can Man, that really made everything else pointless.
Moot.
Because he doesn't come there because of a misunderstanding. He doesn't come there for any reason that you could say for sure, but it definitely means that nothing anybody else did mattered, because as long as Trash Can Man blew it up, that's the end. That's it. So it kind of made everything up till that point irrelevant.
And all of the people, by the time it detonated, all of the people who needed to be smote had been smote.
Right. Okay. That's the other thing is like, the one thing worse than a Deus Ex Nucleara than coming in to wipe the slate clean is to have a literal Deus show up and overpower, liquefy. What kind of lightning liquefies people left and right? And just makes it ridiculous. Like the fact that the Dark Man can float is suddenly comical in the face of effing God in ball lightning form, liquefying people left and right. And then only after everybody's liquefied, only after all dramatic tension is over with, only after the only 2 people left are the people that we want to have live, then why not? Go ahead, blast open that nuclear bomb and blow
all of them. All of them. All of them.
I'll have a conversation. About what the lightning ball means, and maybe it was called.
IMDb says it's God.
2.
IMDb. I'm just now noticing. Says it's God.
Literally.
Hold on.
Okay.
Let me get there.
Sure.
Like we can have the conversation. Is it really God? Is that and what? Okay, if it was God, was it called by those 2, and that's why they had to go there, and they were in fact the most important. Stu wasn't. We don't know why the dog stayed with Stu anymore. Who cares? They called down God. We could have that conversation and that debate about whether that was a good ending. But then immediately after, they're like, yeah, it didn't really matter if God came because nuclear bomb just blew everything up. So it's all over now. Like, I mean, also, maybe Trash Can Man was turned around by God to come there, but we don't know that because all we got from Trash Can Man was, I brought you the thing, and then everything was blown up.
Like, definitely portrayed him in his final moments as being so at peace with the arrival of God and him beatifically repeating, my life for you, that it looked to my eyes like they were conveying that he was actually serving God the entire time, which is absolutely antithetical to the point of the number one minion of the
that
Dark
never
Man.
Occurred to me until you said it in a text. I thought, what we've seen is he's so devoted and yet misunderstands that he thought, it'll be even better than taking this big fire on a plane, bringing it to my buddy, the Dark Man. That's how I took it. And he comes there before God. Like, he didn't go to the airport. God showed up and he went, oh my gosh, I've been wrong this whole time. We didn't see anything like that. He just was on his way there all the time. So I don't know, maybe you're right. Maybe we're supposed to get that he had a change of heart or was always under God's influence or whatever, but it was not clear to me if that's what it was supposed to be.
Also, we don't know what the coda next week thing is, but we definitely no longer needed the scene of seeing the dog show up back to James Marsden.
Never
who
did.
Doesn't show up to Las Vegas just so that he and MON can hang out in the Fallout.
Tom Cullen. Right. Yeah.
They just meet. Hey, they're doing a Fallout over there. You want to go back to Denver? What?
Yeah, why not? Let's go.
Well, and plus also like they definitely in one scene set up where it's like you hear two dogs fighting, and I know what the sound of two dogs fighting is, and you hear a ka-thunk, and it's like, okay, this is the part where, to our surprise, Tom Cullen shows up. But I believe that was last episode, and they didn't even do it. They just had Kojak like, anyway, ka-thunk, am I right?
I'm an amazing golden retriever, and I just took down a wolf. Thanks a lot. I'm barely even scratched. So anyway, where were we? Don't take those pills.
I'm angry. I want to go to Vegas and place a bet against. I want to go. I want to buy a time machine so I could short this show.
The other thing, I would maybe, well, I don't know that it's worth doing, but a researcher who is dissecting this for academic purposes maybe might find reason to go back and watch when Mother A is giving giving her big vision that like one of you is gonna fall, and maybe she doesn't say one of you is going to die, the thing that everybody interprets it to be, but it definitely seems like everybody except James Marsden died, which is like, okay, like, so definitely Mother A has no powers. She's just like on peyote or something.
If you set it aside from the ridiculousness of everything else, one of them fell, and it was misleading. The one who fell was the one who would survive. You thought, oh, one of you will fall, and that will be the one who dies, and everybody else succeeds.
I might be
if we had an actual like sensible conclusion, then maybe I could make something out of that and be like, oh, okay, what they mean was, she was trying to tell them X, Y, and Z, but instead of like, one of you will fall, ha ha ha, you'll be the only one that survives, because apparently it didn't matter that you went at all, because Trash Can Man blew everything up. You didn't even need to show up, apparently.
Yeah. If I remember the book correctly, it was phrased more, not that one of you would fall, but like four of you will go, one of you won't make it. And which is a more ominous and direct way to indicate it's
and
not
he didn't
great
make it
when you break your leg. Yeah. Exactly. But man, was it a dumb decision
how
to put that dog 2 episodes ago and release any tension that was there. Just inexcusable.
So this might be an understatement, but it sounds like this is not how that the ending scene happens in the book.
Nope. It pretty much is.
Oh, really?
Well, first of all, in the book, what happens is this episode also had the mock trial, didn't it?
Yep.
Yeah,
that's right.
There was no mock trial, and I hated the mock trial because it conveyed the idea that Randall Flagg was like afraid to show his face or whatever. Instead, what happens is the professor Glenn, he's just in a cell, and he's doing his, 2 people make a society, 3 people make a religion, whatever. He's doing that stuff. And then somebody pulls out a gun and he begins to call his bluff. Also, way to cut the nuts off of Lloyd. Not to be the in the book guy, but in the book, that dude murders people left and right. So you have real fears when he pulls out a gun on Glenn. In this, it's like he goes to jail as being a cop killer, but didn't even kill the cop because he's conflicted or whatever, and then he's too chicken to pull the trigger. Boo to all of that. But the point is, like, Glenn, there's this moment in the book where Glenn realizes he's definitely going to die, and he's less afraid of what comes next than Lloyd is. And so he just runs his mouth off, and it's glorious as he gets shot. Even though you grieve for Glenn, you celebrate his victory over Lloyd and the fears that are driving him. None of that in that mock trial thing. It was dumb as hell.
I would like to believe, just basic script writing, right? This is a CBS affiliated thing that, really not going to leave a lot of loose ends and unresolved things. You're not going to set something up just for it to never materialize, short of some big emergency happening. And maybe COVID affected it. Maybe the presidency thing affected it. Maybe any number of things made them change things at the end to make it not make sense. But this felt like what they would have done if they expected to get a second season or tell more of a story, instead of the climax of a miniseries, which is what I believe it to be, which is a one and done thing.
Yeah, no, it's what they build it as.
I don't know what they can do next week in the coda.
There you go. There's our dramatic tension. What will they do in this final
What is left
to
do?
There's actually a fair bit, and again, at this point, screw it. I'll just spoil the book. There's a good 200 pages after this moment in the book, and it's the story of how does Stu with the broken leg and Tom Cullen make their way all the way back to Boulder. They end up getting snowed in because seasons change and they can no longer travel on the road. So they end up having to winter for a couple of months in a hotel. And there's a magical moment where he, surprises Tom Cullen by, they work on a big old model of what they call Moonbase Alpha. He surprises them with a movie night one night, but at some point they're able to get a tractor going and they feel like they can make it. But by the time they make it, it's been months and months. And so they make it back into town and he finds out whether or not, Franny lived or died or whether or not the baby lived or died. Mm-hmm. Then they also contextualize the fact that, this baby is only 50% from the immune side. And that's going to have a big bearing on whether or not, if the baby lives or dies, it's going to have a big bearing on whether or not humanity has any future laid out in front of it. So there's real tension. So here's what I expect. I expect that they called this the last episode to cue home viewers that whole Dark Man story is over. There'll be a whole full episode though, but it's pretty much over. We're going to call it a coda.
I guess so. I don't know. But I think if you're just just a casual viewer, I don't think you would ever look up the episode titles and see something called coda, right? I don't know. I mean, weird. Just weird. Very, very strange. Tom?
Yes.
I don't know. I have nothing left for the show. I have nothing left for that.
I've said all I could stand to say about episode 8, season 1 of The Stand.
So this was The Stand? Because they took a stand? Oh, never mind. We're done.
Also, in the book, it's a pretty dope scene because, number one, they kill Glenn and they intend to publicly execute everyone. Now, here's where we run into budgetary issues. Like, they physically start nailing them to crosses in front of a crowd of thousands. And it is terrifying and you feel all the hate or whatever. In this case, they pulled the same way that they cut the nuts off of Lloyd by acting like he never really killed a person and is uncomfortable with it. Like, no. Lloyd is a killer in the book. Sure. Also, the crowd definitely wants them to die and they are unafraid. That whole business of I will fear no evil and I too yub-nub, whatever. That was an Ewok reference. It doesn't matter. But the point is, it's at the height of that Trash Can Man comes rolling in, just melted from the radiation. And then it really is straight up just sort of, I don't know, a descending ball lightning that strikes it. And then that's the last you see. And somehow it's less weird in the book.
No, it works in the book. And maybe because you're inside the minds of more people, but in the book, it's like, oh, Trash Can Man didn't mean for it to go off. Oh, this and that.
Right. His radiation addled mind, had just, but, and also I believe that in the book, again in the book, I believe that his mission was to go and get ordnance so that they could do like military airstrikes. And Trash Can Man, because we talked about this, it was an act of contrition that he feels like he screwed up. And that's what causes him to do the daring, outrageous thing of finding a nuke and bringing it back because he wants to make everything whole for the Dark Man. Mm-hmm. But in this case, it was the direct mission of the Dark Man. So why should he be surprised when he comes back with the thing that he asked him to go get? It's awful ending.
Well, that is it for this episode of Spoiler Book Time. The Stand, Season 1, Episode 8. Go read the book. It's a great book. We really recommend reading the book.
More white people.
That is going to do it for us. Next week, we will talk about the coda of The Stand. We'll also talk about Episode 12, Season 1 of Hannibal, and Episode 6 of Season 1 of WandaVision. Cordkillers.com to find the episodes or get them early. Be a patron, patreon.com/Cordkillers. We'll talk to you then.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.